Hey everybody, in this video I want to show you how you can create rooms that you can enter and exit in your game. So as an example, I created 3 different rooms with different conditions that allow us to enter and exit. In this one, you just touch a treasure chest, you go back out. This one, you have to survive with the time clock. And you exit. And the last one, you have to collect 3 apples and you exit. Alright, so let's get started. If you'd like to follow along with this tutorial, I created some starter code. The link is down in the description below, and it'll give you this code you can start out with. So I just created a sprite, my character, movement, and my starter tile map. And I also created 3 different tile maps that we'll use later for our individual rooms. So I'm going to start with the first one that we saw, and that is just entering this room and then having to touch another tile map to then exit the room. So to get started with this, we're going to be using this block right here for all 3 of our different rooms. And we can then pick which tile map we want to trigger our first room. So I'm going to pick this one on the left here, which kind of looks like a doorway. And I'm going to set it, it's going to switch to this tile map. The other thing we need to do when we enter in this tile map is set our player. As you can see, it's not there. And that's because this tile map is smaller than the other one. So we're at a random position somewhere on the screen. So what we're going to do is use this exact block up here to kind of then pick a location inside this tile map. So you can find this one under scene, and we're going to grab this one. So place my sprite on top of tile map, and I'm going to change this to player character. And the easy way to find a starting position is by clicking in your tile map and then hovering over a spot where you want to start. So this is the one that I like, and if you look in the bottom left hand corner, it'll show you the coordinates where you're at. It disappears when I'm off it, but when I hover back over, you can see now it says 5, 6. And that refers to the XY coordinate of where we're gonna go. So I'm gonna type this in, 5, 6. And let's test that out. And there we go. So now we're in the room we want. So now once we're in the room, we need to add a condition that gets us outside of the room. And like I said, what we're going to do is we're going to add another tile up here, and we're going to say when we touch this tile, it will then trigger something else to get back to our starting tile map. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click and I'm going to click duplicate. And that's going to get us the exact same code that we had before. But instead of using this tile here, we're going to pick a new one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this tile. I'm going to click on dungeon, like this treasure chest. I'm going to add it up in here. And what I should have here is the treasure chest. And I'm going to get rid of this tile map. And I'm going to right click. I'm going to duplicate my original tile map. I'm going to put it at the top. I'm going to put this in here. And I'm going to make it look like I just exited that room. So I'm going to put me on this spot right here. And if you look down in the bottom left hand corner again, you'll see it is 12, 12. Position, column 12, row 12. So finally, let's test that again. Get up, touch that, and we exit out. Perfect. So now we have our first room or first level. So I'm going to right click so I can kind of keep track of this. I'm going to type in room 1. And this way I know all the code that goes underneath here is for room 1. So let's add our room 2. So I'm going to click duplicate. I'll scroll down a little bit. And I'm going to change this one to the top. And again, I'm going to leave that one in here. Get rid of that. Scroll back up, and I'm actually going to use this one just for a little bit of variety. And you want to make sure this is above, and you can leave this the exact same since the rest of these tile maps we're using, the room tile maps are all the exact same size. So this one will pop us in to the right spot we want to go to. So for this one, I was using a timer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize a timer. You can find that underneath game info. I'm going to click start down. You can set this to whatever you want. Just for example, I'm going to set it to 3 seconds. And then just to help clarify things, I like including a text box before there. So I'm going to say survive for 3 seconds. And we can go up here. I push A, and 3 seconds are going to count down. But you'll see right here, it's triggering a game over. And that's what the default is once you do a countdown, that it will just automatically trigger game over. So what we want to do is go back up to info, and we're going to say on countdown end. So if we made it for 3 whole seconds, we can then trigger something else. And again, if you thought it would just be this, you are absolutely right. We're going, oops, duplicate that. So on countdown in, it's gonna put us right back out at the end. So again, I'm gonna go back up here, check my coordinates. Looks like column 14, row 11. Done. So I'm gonna go 14, row 11. Let's test that one. There he is. Just like we wanted. So I'm going to add another comment. I'm going to say call this room 2. And now we have 2 rooms done. It's a simple way we can kind of trigger this code for enter and exit. So let's add a third one. And this one's going to be a little more complicated. Just kind of give you a feel for adding extra sprites, adding projectiles into your game, and how you might handle that situation when you only want them to appear in this room and not in any other room or any part of the game. So I'm going to change that to that one and get rid of that code. I'm going to go up here, grab my pre-made tile map. Going to add my comment to keep things clear. Room 3. Okay. So what I want to do in room 3 is add a apple projectile, something where my player needs to collect something to then exit. And it's going to randomly fall from the sky. First thing we're going to do is add a on-game update every 500 milliseconds. I'm going to change this to 1 second. So what I'm going to put in here is my apple's falling from the sky every second. So to go up here, I'm going to create a projectile from the side. And I'm going to create a new variable. I'm just going to call it apple. And then I'm going to go into the gallery, and I'm just going to grab apple. And because I only want them falling downwards and not like at an angle, I'm going to change this velocity x to 0 and leave the velocity y at 50. And you can see now on our screen, we have these apples falling from the sky. But we don't want it to happen right now. We only want it to happen when we enter room 3. So there's a really simple way to do this is I'm going to create another variable, and I'm going to call it room number, or room num for short. And what I'm going to say is if room num equals 3, then do this. So we can grab this equal sign here. I'm going to go back to variables. I'm going to add room num, and I'm going to say room num 3. And then this will turn it off. And obviously we don't have apples anymore, but now we need to turn it on. And so that's what we're going to do in here. We're going to say when we enter this room, we're going to set it to room number 3. So we're going to grab under variables again. We're going to grab that set room num, and we're going to say it to 3. So let's just test this out, see what we got. And now we have apples coming down from the sky. But now we also want them to go at random locations, you know, coming from the top. So if I go back to sprites, I can grab set sprite x to 0. I'm going to change this to apple. And then I'm going to say, well, we could just, I'm going to type in 50 here, but it's just going to give us one location. What we want to do is we want the game to pick like a random spot. So I'm going to go back to math, and I'm going to grab pick random. And then I found, I think like 20 to 130 when I was practicing this was a good spot. And then we can see a good location. Okay, so we got that. We got them falling random from the sky. It only happens when we're in room number 3. But how do we capture them? So, you know, when our sprite touches an apple, it gives us a count, you know. So we need to do another sprites block. And what we're gonna do is on sprite of player interacts with other sprite of kind. And we wanna pick one of these. And I'm gonna say, even though the apple's not really our enemy, I'm just gonna call it enemy. And we also need to add this to our thing above. So we need to set the kind here. So we need to say apple of kind enemy. So that way the apple is a kind enemy, and when we touch a kind enemy, which is only the apple at this point, it's going to cause something. So what we need to do is we need to count how many apples we've actually gathered. So we can make a variable. I'm going to call this apple count. And what we're going to do is we're going to say apple count equals 1. But what we also need to do is we need to get rid of the apple once we touch it, because otherwise when we do this, the apple keeps going through us and it's going to increase the apple count to something really high. So what we can do is we can go over back to sprites, and oops, where's it at? We can grab destroy. So we're going to say destroy apple. Or actually, no, I apologize. We're not going to destroy apple. That might be our first inclination, but since we're creating a bunch of different apples every time we create a new thing, we need to know which apple we're actually getting rid of. And for that, we're going to grab other sprite. So this other sprite is the one that we're touching at that exact moment, and that's the one we want to destroy. So now we have this. So now we can get rid of apples. But now we need to make a trigger. Once we've collected all the apples that we want, how do we exit this level? And I'm going to grab another game update. And we're going to test using another bit of logic to see if our apple count is at a certain amount. So we're going to go back to here. And we're going to say if apple count equals 3, then we need to switch back to our other levels. And I'm going to grab this. I'm also going to grab this, these 2 blocks. We're going to set back our tile map. go to this location, and that looks like it's column 16, row 12. So I'm going to type that in. So let's test it out. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. And that's it. And that's exactly how you can add a room to your game. The last thing we want to do is just make sure these variables we're using, the apple count and the room num, are all initialized to 0 when we start our game. So just so we don't get any errors. So I'm going to set this one right here for our room 3. So when we enter room 3, our apple count is set back to 0, just because we enter in again. And then I'm going to also set our variables. We're going to set our room num to 0 as well. And I like to do variables right at the top so we can find them easily. And the last part too is, once we do switch, we also want to switch our room num to 0 as well. Let's switch this back. So we're going to grab this right here, room num, and this way it will shut off apples. I guarantee, even though we switched back to this level, somewhere in our game there's apples falling from the screen. We just couldn't see them. So I'm going to set room num back to 0 on this game update. Okay, so thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful as an easy way you can create rooms that you can enter and exit, and set conditions for how you can enter and exit those rooms.